You are listening to This Is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Exciting news. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who have been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com, and then definitely follow them on Instagram for all the information that you need, because I'm sure that's where you follow us as well, at oklahomahof. Let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Pleasure to have Amy Downs on the podcast today. It's the first one I've ever done over Zoom that's actually worked. I did one last week, but it was for another podcast, and I had a phone call 20 minutes later after we finished saying it didn't record.
Oh, no.
That was Todd Vinson, and I'm sure everyone knows who Todd is. So me and Todd actually did it again. Anyway, I just finished the book. It's amazing. David thankfully dropped it off yesterday. And so Amy Downs, Hope, my journey. Hope is a verb, my journey of impossible transformation. There's so much to talk about in this book. I know we're not going to cover everything, but I did cry. I cried at the part where you crossed the finish line.
I did too.
And yeah, I learned so much. I mean, it's the best way to learn about somebody is by reading their book and learning about all the stuff they've gone through. So thanks to David for this book. And my wife's definitely going to read it, because I was reading it yesterday and I read like 3 pages. I turned to my wife. I was like, "You're going to love this." So she's going to read it next. But
it's a quick read, I'm hearing from a lot of people. It's not too long,
Yeah, I just didn't want to put it down. I mean, I know I had to read it before today, and I picked it up yesterday, but I think it's one, like you said, if I didn't have the deadline to read it by this morning, I still would have read it anyway. Because it's just, and I love how it interacts with just daily life and remembering things that happen, to going through the triathlon and the Ironman.
And that was my ghostwriter and collaborator is my nephew. And that's really his talent. He was able to take my story and just weave it in a way that I think makes it more interesting than just me telling a chronological version of what happened.
No, it was really cool, because just relating all the little failures and the drafting that you related to your entire life. And for me, like I have a road bike. I've had it for a couple of years, and I kind of need to get more serious about it. And I did this year. I ran the marathon for the last 2 years, and then ran an ultra marathon in March. And still, it was the Mid-South Gravel. Do you know
Yes.
that? Okay, so I ran the 50 kilometer on the Friday because I couldn't get into the bike. And
it was muddy.
It was. I'm glad I didn't get into the bike this year, because it would have been miserable.
I was at the finish line for the bike, and it was a big muddy mess.
Yeah. Did you? So have you done that race yet?
No, but one of my best friends did it, and we went to cheer her on, and so yeah, I got to see it close up on the course and then at the finish line. Yeah,
I think this year, obviously, with everything that's going on, and lots of people didn't race because of this pandemic and stuff, and it was still, even on Friday, it was still an amazing experience. And I'm hoping. Yeah,
when I was there on Saturday, people, everybody was social distancing, so everybody was standing very, very far apart. But it was still a good vibe, even though there weren't very many people and we were very far apart.
Yeah, there's been some good videos that have come from that too. Mm-hmm. Some good social media videos, and then the guy who was driving the Land Rover the whole race was videoing everything. So that's how I kept up. I sat at home. Icing my legs all day watching the race. But I love, obviously of everything you've gone through, and we'll touch on everything, but I related to the burning sensation of being on the bike. And the first time and I didn't even know what bonking was, right? And the first time that ever happened to me was, I hadn't ridden a bike for like 3 months, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to ride from my house down to the Ferris wheel and back. And that's about 20 miles down, 20 miles back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. typical naive, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I got down there fine because that's as far as I'd ridden. And I turned around to come back and I got to 30 miles and I couldn't pedal. I couldn't stand up. Luckily there was a park bench somewhere and I just kind of sat on it. And there was people passing me, are you okay? I mean, yeah, I'm fine. I'd never felt like that before in my life. Like, why can I not stand up? So I definitely know what that feels like. And then, I don't know how to turn that off. That's not good. The whole burning sensation is just, I totally understand what you said and why you get addicted and why people get addicted to cycling and endurance running because of that, right? Because you just chase that sensation and you just, for some reason I crave it. It's weird. And I'm early on in my process of doing this. Not as seasoned as you are, doing a 100-mile hotter than hell race and now an Ironman. And I'm also glad, not glad, but I love the way you relate to, when people say, no, you're an Iron Woman. No, I am an Iron Man, because that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And after reading this, I'm sure.
To me, if you say you're an Iron Woman, it's like saying, oh, you're good as a girl or good for a girl or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm an Iron Man.
It was, I mean, I just related to so much in the book. And then, I had no idea that after, the bombing happens, you guys open up in Bethany, and then, you change the name to Allegiance, which my wife and my in-laws are banking at Allegiance. So that was like, oh, great, this is awesome. So just little things just kept coming up. And everything, relating to, I kind of picked up from having my notes, obviously you love pink from the bike and everything like that. But I picked up that the alarm goes off on triathlon day and it's AC/DC. And then a few pages later, you talk about like Seth, the drummer of the rock band, the Christian rock band.
My playlist is very bipolar. My playlist is all over the place. Like I'm embarrassed about it. So if anybody were to delete my playlist if something happens to me. So.
Well, that was someone who loves Pink, but also loves AC/DC. That's someone I could have a conversation with. I thought I was kind of good. But yeah, and if everyone listening, for this, just I guess 45 minutes to an hour, where can they get the book before we talk about it?
Say that again.
Where can they get the book before we?
Where can you get the book? Yes, Amazon. Okay. Right now, Amazon. That's where you can get the book. Okay,
awesome. So everyone listen, definitely needs to go check that out, and I'll put the links down below. So grew up in Louisiana early on. I wouldn't say were you trying to say you were a mistake in the book?
I think I might have been. Yeah.
A lot of older brothers and sisters.
Yeah. So I came along way later. My mom had me when she was almost 40, and now that's really not, a lot of women do that now, but back then they didn't. So I kind of came along after the family was already established and everything. And here comes Amy.
Right. And then kind of grew up just having kind of run of the house and just being in your own imagination and kind of getting to do what you want, right? And living that. Yeah. Which a lot of kids now don't get to do that.
Right. Which is interesting because, when you're growing up, you always think, maybe the thing you think is a curse, later you realize actually helps shape who you are. And it actually, wasn't as bad as you thought it was. And,
Yeah. And then kind of things I picked up in the book, I just lacked a little bit of direction, I guess, and kind of went to college and didn't really know what.
Yeah, I really did not have any direction. I really was just sort of floating. And keep in mind, I came from, in the South, and in my generation, it was just starting to change where women were really kind of becoming empowered, and I don't necessarily need to get married. I can be whatever I want and do whatever I want. I was still sort of from this, how I was brought up, you grew up to get married. You grew up to get married and your husband took care of you. I mean, it was still sort of that mindset.
Right.
So I never really leaned into, oh, I can do anything and be anything. And it was, more or less, well, I'm going to marry someone. And that's my identity is going to be wrapped up in this person I marry, and they're going to take care of me.
Yeah. So when the idea comes into your head that there's an opportunity in Oklahoma City, your sister, I think, said, with this great single man at our church, come on up. And
I jumped on it. It was my opportunity. I'm going to have a new life in this wonderful Oklahoma City, and I'm going to, turn things around. This person's going to turn me around, and everything's going to be great.
Yeah. What year was that when you came to Oklahoma City?
That was in 1988.
Okay.
And so that would be when everybody else was leaving Oklahoma because we were having bank failures and everything else. And, at the end of the oil bust. And so I am coming to Oklahoma City when everybody else is leaving. And on top of that, I'm going to go work for a financial institution. So, yeah.
Which not many people, I assume, were trying to go get jobs at financial.
No.
Yeah. So come to Oklahoma City, it's completely different, obviously, to what it is now, and even what it was 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Apps wasn't around, and the economy wasn't great, and Bricktown was not a safe place, and all these kind of things. But to you, coming from Shreveport, that was like, oh, it's an actual city, right?
Yeah. I felt fancy. I remember being downtown, and we walked through, maybe in Leadership Square, there's like a catwalk, where you walk across the street and you can see the cars. And, oh man, I thought I was like modern,
Yeah. So you go, you get hired on, and you go work at FECU, is that right?
Federal Employees Credit Union, yeah. So, which is the same credit union I work at now, but back then we were in the federal building, and that's what we served the people in the building. Yeah.
So you go with you get hired on as a teller, and I love the way that in the book it says that you got, the way you wrote that you get hired on is, I can't remember, someone.
It's my horoscope. She asked me when I was born, and I told her, she was like, oh, you're an Aries. We need another Aries. And like, that's my qualifications for why I am CEO of this credit union now, I guess. So
is that a recommended answer, recommended question now on every application? Is that allowed?
No, it's not allowed anymore. I think back then, I think it was probably still okay to ask that. So yeah.
Yeah. So you go to work, everything, it's getting better, and you meet your husband, and kind of life's changing and all that kind of stuff. And you meet Vicky, who becomes your mentor, right, during this period, and all these other people that you name in the book that we'll get into. And I can relate to not having kids as well during this time, right? Because I don't have any kids, and you were living with your sister and around a bunch of kids, and just like like a lot of, like, as a young person, like I'm 28 now, 29, and I'm the same way around my niece and nephew. Sometimes I'm just like, an hour's enough.
Yeah.
So I'm screaming, I want to be somewhere else. So I can totally relate to that. But it seems like in the book that you're always kind of like, not like blaming things, but you're always kind of like finding excuses and getting away with not doing the things that you like want to do, and not the things that people want you to do, right? Like,
right.
Kind of playing dumb, I guess, to not, or whatever it was. And like,
right.
And then, the events happen that day, and, in 95, that whole thing happens, and it's just a straight mind shift, right?
Yes. So, I think it's a mind shift from not taking real responsibility for your life to getting to a place where you really do begin to take responsibility for your life. And, it's not like it was purposeful. I don't think I really realized, how, kind of selfish and, how much I blamed other people or was looking for other people to fix me. I don't think I really realized that. And then, in a moment where your life is getting ready to be over, you have so much clarity all of a sudden about looking at your life, through, a different lens at that point. And so that was the beginning of me really kind of looking at my life and going, okay, I don't think I wasted this life. I didn't live it correctly. I should have done more for other people. I should have, that was sort of the thing that hit me hard, during those hours.
And that's something that I kind of really want to just kind of touch on today, right? Because everyone can go and learn about what happened. There's documentaries and there's lots of interviews and the book is a way to learn about it. And I don't want to talk about it too much. What I want to talk about, and I think that people will definitely learn from, is exactly what you just said. It's how this moment has changed your life and how people they shouldn't wait for a moment like this to, realize how precious life is. And what struck me as well was the fact that there was a moment where you kind of reached out with your foot to touch what you thought was a live wire, right? And like going from that to somebody finding you and saying, chop off my leg and get me out, and just that whole moment of being stuck for 6 hours and all the emotions that go through. And in some ways it kind of relates to the endurance stuff that you do, because you're just in your own head for 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. And I kind of just in the ultramarathon that I did, it was the first time I'd done it without listening to any music. And I never realized how the power of the mind can get you through situations like that. And that was only 6.5 hours for me of running, but that was more than I'd ever ran before. And just how powerful like reinforcement is and all that kind of like just comes together to realize that we're capable of so much more.
Yes.
And it shouldn't take a huge moment like what happened downtown and the 168 and all the people that were lost and your colleagues and just loved ones and all the rest of that. It shouldn't take a moment like that to reset people on their path to do what they really want to do. Where, and after kind of just everything that happens and you, like Lynette's talking about waving her magic wand, right? And what, in the book and what would you have? And you start, I love that you have your note cards and you write down, what's next kind of thing, right? And then it gets to you reach where you reach everything you've wanted to do, right? You're in a very good position. You're vice president and, you have all the things that you have. And she's like, yeah, well, what's next? I'm like,
yeah.
What do you mean what's next? I've done everything. Like, no, there's levels, right? There's, and that's one thing that I love too, is you can just continually strive. There's always better. There's always a faster.
I call it leveling up. It's just, just constantly leveling up.
Yeah. And that's something that like you're teaching now, right? You're doing a lot of speaking and kind of transitioning into doing speaking as well to spread this. I'm sure that was one of the reasons for writing the book. Was it really tough to write the book? Because it's been a long time.
So the book, okay. The book has been in the works for almost 10 years or maybe more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And I never could really get clear on the message. I didn't want to write a book just to be like, look at me, like, look how, that bothered me. So I even worked with other people on it and couldn't get clarity about where I was really going. I mean, I knew I had all these messages about leveling up and taking responsibility. I mean, I knew I had something to share. I just couldn't seem to get it in really a really clear, direct message or whatever. So I kept struggling with it. Well, over a year ago, Thanksgiving 2018, my nephew and I are talking at Thanksgiving dinner about this book. And I did not know he had a master's degree in writing. I knew he was an attorney, didn't know he had a master's degree in writing. And so all of a sudden he starts talking to me about the book and about it. And, here's what I see. Cause he's lived it with me, it being in my family. He's like, here's what I see from the outside looking, and he starts talking. I'm like, you need to help me write this book. Like, you need to help me. And he's like, no, no, I don't want to help you write your book. Yeah. And so I was like, well, you got to help me, give me some direction or something. And so we planned lunch to meet for lunch and talk about it. I was hoping I could maybe talk him into it. He was going to come to lunch and give me the name and number of somebody else to put me in contact with. But he said that morning when he was getting up and looking at his day and remembering he had lunch with me and, I got to get her in touch with this other person. He said he just felt something in his heart, like, you're supposed to write this book. Like, you're supposed to help her. You're supposed to help her write this book. So he comes to lunch. we're meeting in Charleston's, and he sits down in the booth. He just looks at me and he just sighs, and he's like, I'm supposed to write this book with you. And I'm like, I know. So he didn't want to. So bless his heart, for the next year, he spends almost every Saturday with me for 2 or 3 hours at a time. Now, Saturday is my time to ride the bike. So the first time I was like, you understand, like, you're going to have to ride a bike with me. So I have 2 trainers that you put a bicycle on, 2 smart trainers. And so he rode my husband's bike and I rode my bike, and we rigged up a deal to set his computer on and to record the conversation, and we would talk. And then during the week, he would play that back in the mornings before he went to his job as an attorney. He would write, and he ended up writing, because it is very difficult. There's so much that happened and so many little lessons that it gets scattered sometimes. And so he ended up writing, I want to say 5 different versions. It was 4 or 5 different versions of the book that got scrapped because we just, he was like, no, this isn't it, and he just kept trying to get it right. And so finally, we read the book, Hope Rising. And the book Hope Rising talked about this notion of hope being a verb. There was a sentence in the book somewhere that said hope is a verb. And that really resonated. It was like, hope is a verb. That's right. And hope is a actual, pathway, and you have agency and over that, and build community around yourself and accountability to get there. And that is what hope is all about, because it's you taking this path and taking these actions and doing this thing. And so that's where this hope is a verb thing came from. And, it's one of those things where you can look at, even right now, this pandemic that's happening to us. There was I think we've all been all over the place, with this. Like, you have one day where you think, oh, we're going to get through this. This is going to pass, and then you have other moments where you hit a low because you're scared and you don't know what's going to happen and what, financially and all kinds of things. One morning, I was really struggling, and I thought to myself, I feel hopeless. Like, I feel hopeless. And I thought about that word hope, and I was like, so what does that mean? That means I feel like I don't have a pathway. And that made sense, because right now we kind of don't know what to do. Like, what do we do? So you have to think about, what can I do, and do those things. So I'm like, okay, you know what I can do? I can get out and I can go walk outside in the sunshine. So I started just making a path for myself of, what can I do to create a great day? What can I do to create a great day right now, today? What can I do? What's within my power? What can I put on my list? That pathway to have a great day. And all of a sudden, it's weird. You just that helps you start feeling hope a little bit right there, because you're in control of kind of doing something, taking some action, Yeah. So.
And there's so many, I just spoke, to that point, I spoke to a few people recently and just kind of checking in, following up, how's everyone doing? And a mate of mine said that, this is the first time I've ever spent so much time with my kids, and his kids are 11 and 14, they're in that kind of age where, they're buried in their computers, but if they're home, they actually want to go and do stuff, right? Not
right. And there are some opportunities there. It's kind of the idea of, we can't, kind of another message I have in there is, we've all heard the cliche, you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you choose to respond to it. Okay, so you're stuck at home and you have kids. What can you do with that? How can you respond to that? You're trying to work, you're trying to juggle all the things, and you have kids. You know what? Maybe this is an opportunity to create some memories, very unique memories with your kids right now,
Yeah. So going back to, surviving and having this mind shift and realizing that, I can do something with my life. And then at that moment, you also realize, I want to have a kid, or I want to have kids too. Right. And then, going through the whole losing a baby, having a miscarriage, and then a year later, your son Austin's born.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things in the book that happen, right? And so many little failures that you go through to get to where you're at. And that's another kind of important message too, is just the amount of continued little failures in this book. And, and going to, you kind of, the moment when you're at the fair with Austin, and you have this, this embarrassing moment with Austin, and he's crying, and he just wants to ride, the ride and all that kind of stuff that goes on. And that to me, it's like, okay, I have to do something about my weight gain and my image because I've been putting it off for so long, right? That was like the last thing. Everything else is, you know, I've got my job and I'm doing, you know, I got going to school and I've got my degree. And then finally it's like, okay, now like I've been putting this off for so long. And it's something that everybody does, right? Like I even if it's 20 pounds, 30 pounds or whatever it is, like I kind of gone through it myself, right? You know, the cliche, you get married and you gain 20 pounds the first year you get married, right? Like that happened to me and my wife.
Well, we just don't change until we get so uncomfortable with what's going on that actually changing might be easier than continuing in the discomfort we have, you know?
Yeah. And you know, starting and descent, you know, everyone in the pages of the book, it's what everybody does when they want to lose weight. Oh, I'll start Monday. Oh, I'll start on the first of the month. Oh, I'll start now, but you know, like I've had a bad breakfast, so I'll just start tomorrow instead of starting at lunch, and just kind of going through all these little failures, right? And picking instead of, you know, like I think in the book it says you just decided from day one, I'm going to lose 100 pounds. Not, you know, like I think in the book you also said the you know, how do you eat an elephant, right? Not by losing one, you know, instead of saying I'm going to lose 1 pound at a time and have a salad, whatever it is, right? We all do that. I did that. I did that with the, you know, riding a bike, deciding to ride a bike 40 miles and failing after 30. Like these little failures, but I think the action is what's so important. And that's the message I got, is the action of going towards it. And by doing these little failures, you found the love for cycling.
Yes.
Right? Like that's what, you know, going through, you know, going to the gym and seeing everyone at the gym and seeing all these mirrors and seeing yourself and like, I hate this, get me out of here.
Yeah.
You know, like my knees hurt, whatever it is. And then, was it, trying to think, who was it that invited you to go cycle? Was it Lynette?
So my boss,
right.
My sister had been after me, but my boss actually had an opportunity where her husband had surgery or something. And she was like, you ought to come test out his bike. Like, come ride with me and we'll go. So I went with her just for like 15 minutes and it was amazing. So, and then after that, my sister Donna, I called her from the car and I'm like, okay, I'm in, I want a bike. And so then she takes me, shout out to Pro Bike. She takes me there to get a bike. And then we go ride. And she and I, on one of our first rides, I remember we rode all the way around Lake Hefner. And I finished that bike ride after riding all the way around Lake Hefner. And I'm like, where is my freaking medal? Like, where's the, like, hello, where are the news crew? Where's the people? Like, I just rode my bike around Lake Hefner. Like that, it was that huge to me. I could not even fathom riding my bike around Lake Hefner. I didn't even know we had a trail system around Lake Hefner. Like if you're 355 pounds, you're not out checking out trails and stuff. I had no clue. I felt like I had discovered the secret, you know, hidden underground world in Oklahoma. It was cool.
Yeah. I know what that feels like. I don't know what it feels like to be 355 pounds, but I know what it feels like to finish riding around or even running around Lake Hefner. Like, did that really? And
running around Lake Hefner is even harder because it's kind of surprisingly boring a little bit to me. Like first time I ran around Lake Hefner, I thought it was going to be really amazing, and it was amazing to like mentally now see Lake Hefner, and I can now say, yeah, I've ridden my bike around that so many times it's not even funny. I've ran around it. And then I've actually swam in it because Redman, you can swim in it for Redman. So that's cool, the idea of it, but the actual process of running around it is I found it a little boring.
Yeah, it's not fun. I don't know, running isn't fun in general, really.
Yeah, that's true. Till you're done. It's fun when you're done.
Yes, fact. I believe the whole run is high when I finished. I know that. So, you know, you're having these, you've got all this success, but the weight is the last thing that you really tried to tackle and did tackle. And you have this 15-minute bike ride that takes you back to riding horses in your childhood, right? It takes you back to being in Shreveport and that whole feeling. And then you get hooked, but it's still, and I haven't worn Lycra shorts yet either, but I'm sure there's going to be a day when I get serious about cycling. But that's one thing that I picked up is all these little failures get to cycling, and you never would have discovered cycling if you hadn't failed these so many times. And then you get completely hooked in cycling. Like to the point where you're racing 500 miles over a week, camping.
I don't want to make you dizzy, but so I'm going to probably make you dizzy here. So this is my office, and that's my bike right there. So I'm a little obsessed, I would say, with my bike.
What, from all the lessons that you had learned from all the things that you've been through, and the moments, the failures, the successes, and just kind of the ups and downs of business and life and marriage, and that, when you come to being addicted and growing and getting addicted to cycling and that endurance, how did all that prepare you for just endurance, being an endurance athlete?
It did, because, we go through pain in life, and we go through difficult seasons. And, I think there's a little bit in you that says, you know what, if I endured that, if I went through that, I can do this other thing. And there's a difference between pain happening to you that's out of your control. You're at the hand of something, versus I am going to voluntarily put myself in a season of growth, which means something's going to hurt and be painful because I'm choosing to, because I actually want to grow. I actually want to do something that improves myself, and that is going to be painful, but I'm choosing to do it and I'm in control, versus whether you're, in a bad marriage, or, you're going through a season of a medical battle or something that you're just battling for your life, versus, I'm going to take on this thing. And when you do that and you take on whatever that thing is, and whether it's a degree or, a run around Lake Hefner or whatever the thing is, you're changed when you finish that, because you realize I really can be more. I really can do more, and there's a confidence, I think, that builds inside you when you do that.
Yeah. And is that kind of, you did that first lap around Lake Hefner, and then just every day was I can do a mile more, I can do another mile and do 2 laps, and I'm going to go on a 40-mile bike ride because that's normal now. And then how long does it take for you to think, I'm going to do my century ride?
I started riding my bike in 2009, and I did the first year I was cycling, I got up to 50 miles. And the second year is when I rode my bike across the state of Oklahoma in 1 week, and then also did the 100 miles at Hotter Than Hell.
Yeah.
Actually, I think I did 3 centuries. I think I did Hotter Than Hell, and then there were some other ones I did as well after that.
For those people listening that don't know the Hotter Than Hell cycling race,
it's 100 miles in incredible heat in Wichita Falls, Texas. Fun, good times.
Yeah, it seems like hell. It seems like it sounds, right? Yeah. And just kind of, in that, you talking about it, you that the feeling of just burning, right? And your quads and your thighs, and I'm in my head, I can do this.
Yeah, and it's a burning in your head too, right? Because you've got this voice in your head saying, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Really, who do you think you are? You don't look like these people. You still have some pounds to lose. You're still you can't even keep up. You're not going to get there in time, and it's that fight against yourself and that other voice in your head that you have to nurture that says, no, I'm doing it. Watch me, and you just have to engage that and say, no, I'm doing it in that fight and that burn. And then when you do it, best feeling in the world, And
getting past, getting past the cutoff point, right? It was at mile 60, I think you said it was 61 in the book. And, just that I've just got to get to that. And having these small goals, that's one thing that I kind of took away and took from ultra, just endurance racing in just little goals, right? Get to this point.
What was your ultra distance on your ultra run?
31.
31. Okay. Yeah. So nobody said it would take a rare person with rare genetics to wake up one day and say, I'm going to go run 31 miles today. You didn't. Yeah. You started out with probably a 5K. Then you went to a 10K, and then you went, so yeah, it's like constant leveling up, constant steps. And our lives need to be that way. That's how you live with intention, is to constantly how can I, improve these relationships? How can I serve more? How can I, not an unnecessary, like ridiculous drive for perfection, but just not allowing yourself to just settle into like this complacent life where you wake up one day and realize you're really actually not living life. You're really just sort of floating along in this stream of life.
Yeah. And I love how you kind of still had the note cards, right? And it was like, get past point, the 61 mile. And then after that, it's like, don't pass out, just finish. And like,
don't die, just
don't
finish.
Die.
Yeah.
Leveling up and going from that point because riding 100 miles is easy compared to running and completing an Ironman. So, and I know you, like I said, you level up. So when was the choice to, okay, I've done this now, what's next? Oh, you know what, I'll just do an Ironman. Why not? Right?
I think there's been an ebb and flow of that. I won't say it's very succinctly like, okay, we finished Hotter Than Hell. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do this. Yeah. And so I actually probably more recent in my memory would be Iron Man. Okay, so you finish Iron Man and you're like, well, what do you do now? Like, what do I do now? So I probably had that same thought with Hotter Than Hell. Like, well, what do I do now? So then you kind of settle back into your normal routine, but you're kind of looking for like, okay, so where do you go from here? Like, what do I do next? Like, what's the next thing? It's not always real clear. And sometimes sometimes my path has gone sideways, backwards, then forward, so it's sort of, it's not just a constant up. There's a lot of lateral, even backwards, and having to correct and then move forward. So I've had a lot of that. And of course, injuries can play into that. Like right now, I actually have a back injury. So I'm having to lay off my bike, and I've gone, I feel like I need to go to confession. Like it's been 1 week since my last bike ride. Mm-hmm. So that's difficult. So what do you do with that? And when you've done an Ironman, how do you get excited about, okay, I'm actually just going to go walk around the block? Like it's a head thing, because you want to go, well, that's nothing. Like I've done an Ironman, but every day's new. Every season in your life is new. And so you have to just go, okay, but from where I'm at right now, this is my challenge and this is what I'm going to do to get through.
Yeah. And like it's kind of like pushed me to like, I probably shouldn't like, and I know you mean like running a marathon, running an ultra marathon, riding 100 miles. I mean, swimming, I'm scared of swimming because I can't swim 25 meters without kind of, leaning to the side of the pool. But as well, like you kind of get addicted to it, don't you?
You do. You get addicted to that success, that accomplishment. It's very powerful to have that accomplishment. And so I found this out when I did my Ironman. There's several Ironman like athletes, like age groupers, like actual, not pro, but what I consider almost elite, in Oklahoma City. And I would run into them at different times, and they would ask me the year after, how are you doing after your Ironman? And, first I'm like, oh, I'm fine. They're like, no, really, how are you doing? And I'm like, I think I'm depressed. And they're like, that's so everybody does. And that's why what they were getting at, they wanted me to say that so they could reassure me that from the pros, like anytime you accomplish something huge like that, there is a little bit of because there's not an immediate next thing you can do. So you lose that high. Like if you're doing a 5K, the next week you can do your 5K faster, or you can do a 10K. Like you can just keep leveling up, and there's that constant adrenaline and reward happening because you're achieving. And then you do something really, really huge, and there's not really anything to top it. You go into a bit of a decline, a bit of a depression.
Yeah. So did you have your eyes set on the Ironman?
Sorry, you might have to edit out that noise. I think it's our ice maker.
Did you have your eyes set on doing another one? Because there's one in Tulsa, right? Well, I'm sure it's been.
Yes. So the problem is when I got about 6 weeks out from my Ironman, my knees are not the best from being years overweight, and so I tore the meniscus again, and my knees are actually both bone on bone. So I got through my Ironman by cortisone shots, and it was difficult. So I don't think my current knees have an Ironman in them. I for a while I said I'm one and done. I'm one and done. I also said that when I did a half Ironman. So I've learned to not say never, because you never know. Like if I had partial knees replaced, who knows?
The running part, right? Because you can cycle and swim with bad knees.
Yeah, I can ride my bike. Well, right this week I can't, but I can swim. I can ride my bike. I can definitely do aqua bike, and I've done aqua bike at Redman since then. So now what keeps me in this, in the activity is now I've built such a life and relationships and friends around it. Now when I go ride my bike, it's for enjoyment. It's not really because I'm training for something.
Right.
So I'm not training for something, or it's just, I want to go. It's now how I enjoy it, and it's what I want to do. So as far as, looking for that next accomplishment, that has shifted for me and has gone back to work again, because I became CEO right after I finished Ironman. I became CEO, and that has been a very big challenge. And so a lot of where I've had to shift has been in that area. And then, of course, right now, as we're navigating through really uncertain financial times, all of my energy and focus is going to help my organization and to help the leaders in our organization. And so I think during your life, you have different seasons. Sometimes it may be you have kids and you've got to focus your attention on your kids. And so, but I think you can still take that same thing and level up in those areas. It doesn't have to be a physical run, race, or bike ride. I mean, it may look like something else for people. But it's the idea that you don't look for other people to fix it, do it, whatever. You do what you can do to be the best and to live with intention.
Yeah, that's kind of the lesson I got as well from reading the book, is that, you, after this experience, you really realized, hey, like, I'm not living the life I want to live. Life is very short, and now I'm going to take full advantage of it, and I'm going to go full steam ahead. Regardless if I fail, continue to fail, keep going, just keep moving forward. And that's one of the most powerful things, right? Is getting us to realize, it shouldn't take a huge event for me to realize that I only live once. Right. I should cherish every day and really work towards whatever it is that I need to work towards. And that for you was, like I said, it was going to school, right? And then getting a master's degree, and then finding your love for cycling and doing it. Like, all these things come after the other because of all these little failures. What going forward for you now? Like, I know, you just mentioned uncertain financial times, and that's taking all your focus. Once we get through this time, what's on the note cards now for goals in the future? What if you could wave that magic wand? What's next?
So I do already have something in my head about what's next. And so, okay, so one thing this has taught us, this COVID-19 quarantine that we're all in, is that I can actually work from home. I can actually work remotely and be very effective, surprisingly even more effective in some ways. Yeah. So one of the things I've been wanting to do, and in my head I've always thought maybe I have to wait until I retire, is to ride my bike across the United States. And that takes, I would need, I think it's 7 weeks to do this. You can go with an organized group, and they do hotels for you. They map your course. They do your SAG. And I really want my husband and I to ride our bikes across the United States. And particularly since I all of a sudden ended up with this, like, a little back issue, I'm like, you know what? I'm 53 years old. I don't know. I mean, there's really no guarantees, like, how long your health is going to be in a level you could do something that huge. So I now know that as soon as I get through the other side of this, and there is a bike at District Bicycles in Stillwater that is bright pink, and it's a gravel bike, which technically a gravel bike makes an amazing touring bike. And I want to do that. I want to ride my bike across the United States. So that is what is in my head. And first thing that was the biggest challenge on the note card on that is how to get the board of directors to allow me to take this many weeks off.
Right.
And that's been what's tripped me up I've been wanting to do this for 2 or 3 years. And I can get past that first step of, okay, how do I even get to take time off? And now I'm like, wow, I don't think I have to take time off. Like, I think I could ride to the hotel. I'd be there by noon and I could work the whole rest of the afternoon. And I could very effectively manage for a season like that without any trouble, I think.
How many miles is it a day?
I think it's an average of 75 a day.
Okay, so it's not ridiculous then.
No, and I'm an early bird. I wake up very, very early. So I could wake up early, do some work, then go ride to the next town, and then do more.
That's really cool. One of my favorite documentaries on Netflix is the Iron Cowboy.
Yes, I love him. James, I think his last name, but yeah, he's awesome.
I've watched it too many times. But that would be, I would love to see that. There's another guy who did, there's a guy named Charlie Jabley. Do you know Charlie Jabley? Mm-hmm. He, if you're on the Instagram, just look up @Charlie. He's also done an Ironman. He's done a very, very similar story to yourself, without the terror attack and all the rest of it.
Without being blown up in the bomb.
Without being blown up, yeah. He was a CEO. He was a music producer, manager of a rap artist, made a lot of money, but he was significantly overweight and had a brain tumor, and then just decided that I need to change, lost a ton of weight, completed an Ironman, and biked across America. And now he's going to change the world. And one of his goals was, he's big on the law of attraction. One of his goals was to become a Nike athlete, and he produced his own Nike commercial. And then 2 weeks later, he gets a phone call from Nike, and he's in the commercial with Colin Kaepernick and all the others. That was like one of the biggest moments in Nike history. Amazing story, one that you should definitely check out. But
I will. That's awesome.
He had a huge tour bus and just biked across America. But yeah, that's an amazing goal. I can't wait to see you finish, and I also can't wait to see what's next. Yeah. After that, right?
Yeah.
So wrapping up, because I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you're very busy. Everyone listening, go and get the book at Amazon. And when are you speaking next? When can people come and hear you speak and kind of learn from you? So many events have been canceled. I had about 9 speaking events between April and May, and they've all canceled due to COVID-19. I am speaking at TEDx, and that has been rescheduled in August. I think the weekend before Hotter Than Hell, maybe. Is when that will be. So it's like maybe the 3rd weekend in August. I have to look. But so I know that's coming up. And then there's several. I'm going out of state for some, but I think that's the next local one would be in August probably. Yeah. And then after, obviously still working as CEO and riding across America, is there going to be more books to come through other lessons?
I told Caleb, I was like, so I have already got some ideas for the next book on leadership lessons. And, he just is shaking his head. But so I kind of keep subtly mentioning to him about another book and more from a leadership perspective. Because I do think that there's a lot, there's a lot that I would like to share about changing mindsets on leadership, shifting from an old school leadership mindset. None of us are ever trained to be a supervisor. We just land in that role, and we're not really taught correctly how to lead other people. And so anyway, so maybe there'll be one on that. I don't know.
Great. Well, I really appreciate it. Everyone listening can go follow you on Instagram, Amy on 2 Wheels. Is that right?
Yes.
So on 2 Wheels on Instagram, lots of biking stuff there. And if you love biking, or if you want to get into biking, either reach out to yourself or go to Pro Bike and get yourself a bike, or go up and see Bobby at District Bicycles, and don't buy that pink bike because it's taken.
That's right.
So thank you so much. This has been awesome. One last question for everyone listening. Before buying and reading your book, what is one book that you recommend reading?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
Or any of your favorites?
I love Brene Brown. Daring to Lead, Brene Brown, Hope Rising by Chan Hellman and last name is Gwen. They're a really good one is Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo. That is a really good one. There's so many. I have like too long of a list and I'm kind of going blank right now, but those are some good ones.
Okay, great. Again, thank you so much. I know.
Thank you.
This is a special month for you, and it's a difficult month for you. But I really, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to chat, to talk about the book, the lessons that were learned, and just everything that you've done and accomplished. I know we haven't touched on much, but there's so much in this book, and it's 180 pages of just life lessons that everyone needs to go listen to or read. And you have an audiobook too, right? I think that's cool.
I do. The files are being uploaded, actually, I think right now. So we finished edits and the Audible will be ready soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we will catch you next. Cheers.
This podcast was presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, who've been telling Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. Follow them online at oklahomahof.com and definitely on Instagram at oklahomahof. Catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.